Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Enterprise Estonia, for bringing me over here, and all the other sponsors. And thanks a lot to all of you for actually coming out. I think everyone needs a congratulations. It's very brave to take a step to start your own business. But I can tell you, if you follow it through, it's very rewarding as well. So congratulations to everyone here. The focus for today is going to be more on hardware. So we provide hardware, software solutions. Let me just start off by saying that the only reason we ever design our own hardware is simply because there's not something out there that does what we want it to do. If there's a product out there that works for you, buy it. Use their support. Let them pay for development, let them pay for upgrades. But every once in a while, you want to do something, and there's just nothing out there. So you've got to try and do it yourself. We've got a couple key steps for product development. I also want to say, excuse the slides, we're technical people. We do technical stuff, not pretty stuff. So things might be slightly out of sync, but these are our steps basically to start with product development. Obviously, you start with a vision, which kind of defines what you want to do. You've got to go into planning, then building, then testing. Then you need to protect what you've done. Make sure that other people don't benefit from all your hard work. And finally, you've got to roll it out. The best product that sits on a shelf is unfortunately useless to everyone. So you've got to let people know it's there. You've got to get people to pay for it, ideally, and be moving forwards. What is our vision? I came up with a vision that bandwidth is the new oil, and just like the old industrial economy was powered by oil, it's bandwidth that powers the digital economy. But history repeats itself, and people make the same mistakes. So just like everyone thought oil was this unlimited commodity that would never run out, and they were really wrong, everyone at the moment seems to think that bandwidth is this unlimited commodity, and it's not. I ask anyone here to download a 50 meg document on their 3G connection, and you probably can't. It'll take too long because there's a bandwidth shortage. So that's the problem that we were trying to attack, and we went about it by developing our own hardware and by developing our own software. But anything starts with good planning. We very specifically decided what did we want to do. We wanted any device to be able to be controlled by our cloud platform, communicate, and to have that communicate back to any device. We wanted to be completely independent of third-party networks because third-party networks fail. Operators don't care about your 2-hour event. They guarantee their 99.9% uptime. But if your 2-hour event happens during that 0.1%, too bad for you. So we want to make sure that we offer our clients a no-fail environment when we can maintain the communications. We decided what features were important for us. We wanted to show unrestricted HTML5 environments. We wanted to remove all the rules of the web. When you put things up on the web, you have to make them small. You have to have them easily downloaded by people. We believe that all of you are sitting in front of an HD-capable platform, smartphone, laptop, tablet, and we want to be delivering HD content. We want to be creating maximum user experiences. We don't want to be delivering grainy FLV YouTube videos. We want to be taking full advantage of what you have. We want to collect information. That's the key on our side these days, data capture. Permission-based information is the gold mine. Everything else is just the fluff that wraps around it so that you can get what you want. We obviously wanted to remote access all our platforms. My dream is to be able to control my hardware from a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean. So, little internet connection, couple dashboards, and away you go. We wanted to virtualize. Virtualization is the way of the future. Why have one server running on one piece of hardware when you can have 6 servers running on one piece of hardware and have them be doing all sorts of interesting things? We wanted filtering. We wanted to be able to grab our statistics per user, per MAC address, per device, and any other parameters we wanted to put in there. And we wanted to be able to control things for speed, for internet site access. Give you an example. People are putting free Wi-Fi in retail stores in America at the moment. Target has got free Wi-Fi. 30% of Target shoppers are using the free Wi-Fi to have their Walmart site up and are window shopping. So free internet, we want to control it. Nothing's ever free. It needs to be monetized. We want to control time and a whole bunch of other factors, including gambling, pornography, and things that people shouldn't be doing. What were we actually doing? Well, we realized that this bandwidth issue is actually a physical issue. It's not a digital issue. And the kind of flow that we put together here was the fact that you can, by putting up access points, network cables, routers, you can very easily create local area traffic, massive amounts of bandwidth locally. But then what happens is you have to push all of that traffic out through your internet connection to the cloud. And this is an example that happens very often where you create an enormous amount of local traffic but can only push a certain amount out. So we wanted a hardware-software solution that could plug directly into the LAN and form a complete cloud, so that even if the internet connection wasn't there anymore, we could actually maintain the user experience, we could maintain the fast traffic, and have that kind of no-fail environment. So to start talking about hardware, well, this is where we start. We went online, we found some commercial equipment, we bought it, we put it together, we had it running the way we wanted to, but we ended up with a 2U rack and a 1U load balancer and a 1U switch and big fat access points. We were able to do a ton of simultaneous connections, but it wasn't really the most portable thing we wanted in the world. So this was great to go into stadiums, to go into places that had a server room, but we also wanted to go into places that were hard to get to, like trams or street activation programs. So that's where we really started on the hardware design phase, which is how can we miniaturize all of these items? How can we get them in a nice, compact kind of environment? And how do we then fulfill all this functionality, which is a bit small, but basically is a list of everything that we wanted to do. The important thing that we saw when we started to do this list is also to know what your compromises are. Miniaturization, and I'll show you an example of where we got to, is really great. We took all of that equipment and we managed to put it on a little PCI board that is slightly smaller than a tablet. We can run that PCI board from a battery pack, and we can create a cloud anywhere we want. I have one running here. I'll take you through an example in a second. But this really allowed us to start doing some amazing things. The first key, though, was to come up with the prototype. And this is where we're back to, once again, commonly available equipment. Skip through that for the moment. When we started building our actual prototype, this is what we started off with. We started off with a big fat Cisco access point. We had a couple Linux boxes. We had our 3G uploads. And all of that went into a big fat flight case. As I said, what we ended up with was this. And that was through many iterations. But this is still something that we had to put together ourselves. We had our own little factory line. And once we actually then started going through the actual processes, which basically involve, as I say here, getting it together. I mean, put it together, doesn't matter how ugly it is, doesn't matter how rough it looks. The important thing is that it works and that it achieves your goals. And this is something that I'm constantly fighting with my programmers with, and the hardware developers, is what I call the good enough mentality. I think all of us, especially as entrepreneurs, take a lot of pride in what we do. We're very proud of what we do, and we want it to be perfect. Perfect is just not necessary. That's not what you need to go into the real world. So the good enough mentality is exactly that. Is your product good enough? Is it good enough to do what it needs to do? If so, get it out there and get it tested. I also write here that Radio Shack's my best friend. I don't know what your local equivalent is, but I found, to give you another example, one of the new technologies that we're playing around with, a Japanese chip supplier that we work with sent us a chip. It's the new low energy Bluetooth chip. It's the size of my fingernail. It works off of a coin cell battery, but it's not very useful on its own. So we have to do something with it. I went to Radio Shack. I bought myself a Radio Shack breadboard. I bought some little buttons. I bought some little lights. I bought a motor. I bought a little battery pack. I took out my soldering iron. After the fumes cleared, ended up with something that worked. And then we did a little development app on the iPad, loaded it up, and now we have a fully working demo. We're not quite sure what we're going to do with it yet, but it'll hopefully end up in something really cool. Going back to our original product, during the testing phase, it was very important to get the slide moving forwards. Actually, yes, perfect example. Back, light, laser, and no. Can you move it forwards manually on your side? There we go. Basically, yeah, if you just click all the way through, I'll just go through the points then together. Basically, the testing phase, it's all about people using your product. It's all about getting other people to use your product. What we found is we like using our own product, but we're so close to it. We don't really kind of notice the errors anymore or notice what we're doing. What will come up next is the fact that we do a ton of simulations internally. We've got Apache servers to simulate HTTP requests. We've got some physical load servers to test the physical load. But the one thing that we can't test is stupidity. And unfortunately, when you release your product out to the crowd and you really end up with millions and millions of people using it, people are stupid, and you cannot simulate stupidity. So the only way to really, really get a good feel as to how it's going to work is to actually get people to use it. And they'll come back with the craziest things. I mean, we just developed a game for Red Bull to go into Walmart. And the whole point was to avoid flying objects, but we found that a quarter of the users were actually hitting the objects because they thought they'd get points for it. So only found that out during the actual testing. We do a lot of work for Walmart. Walmart's very strict with us. They have everything must be easy enough for a 5-year-old. That's the Walmart shopper. So sometimes you go out and get a 5-year-old, or you just find a whole bunch of people that act really stupidly. And this is what I mean about testing your product in a live environment. You're never going to see what actually happens or what can possibly go wrong, like we're talking about, until you're in that live environment. But there's some ways to actually hit the live environment. If we can move to the next slide, please. The lab is the lab, end of story. But when we actually go into rollout or into testing, we do a couple things. I mean, first of all, you can look at doing pilot programs, but what we found with the importance with pilot programs is that we set up some goals and some determinables. There's no problem to offer someone a cheap exercise or to do a free exercise. But the important thing for me is to know where that's going. So we set KPIs every time, key performance indicators, every single time we do a pilot program, because I want to know that if our pilot program actually works, that there'll be a roll-on. And generally, our KPIs actually trigger a full rollout. So we start off with a small company or a branch or one part of a retail chain. But it's very clear that if we're doing something cheap or easy or free, that if this works, we're then going to be rolling out across a far bigger scale. We're going to be monetizing, and we're going to be getting our money back. For me, part of the testing as well is that last comment there. You never know how things are going to work the first time you go live. So one of the favorite things that we tend to do is to find someone that we can do a job for absolutely 100% free so that they have 0% expectation. So that if the whole thing does crash and burn the first time, no one's too upset, and you've not burned any bridges, you don't have to refund any money, and you don't have that much bad feeling, so you can continue. When we talk about protection, protection is really important. You work very hard to design what you design. So very, very quickly, we went to exactly what it says there. Promo send, registered global trademark, patent pending. The registered trademark is your copyright. It stops people from associating with the name and the brand that you're creating in the market. The patent, or in this case, patent pending, is going to make sure that when your idea does become a big success, and in a way, imitation is the best form of flattery, but at least when they do imitate you, they'll have to pay you for it, and you'll be able to make some money from it. I was saying, when we're rolling out, if you can just click the whole way through. When we're rolling out, we do start off with the pilot programs, as I said a bit earlier. We're very strict with our setting KPIs, having measurements, and being able to move forward on the goals. And that's what I say is part of the activation plan. But with anything new, you are going to have to convince people of the new tech. So that's where it goes back to pilot programs, case studies, very, very important. One of the advantages that we have now when we go see new clients is first thing a client asks is who's done it before, or I'm not quite sure that this is the same as my industry, so I need you guys to do a pilot. Now that we've got all the case studies in place, it means that we can show the various examples, and we can go straight into production. And then finally, referrals. We have probably the most terrible marketing plan ever, so I'm really happy that this isn't about marketing or marketing plans or viral marketing. We just tend to have very unique technology that works for people, and they give us referrals. So word of mouth is a very powerful way. For all you people in the digital space, that's just my reminder to you that although we love new school, and new school's got a bunch of advantages, old school is a very effective technique. And by old school, I mean word of mouth. I mean making 10,000 flyers and going to doors and handing them out. You know, standing on street corners, doing whatever it takes to get people to use your new technology. You could, for me, please. Finally, the end result of all this is that you have a finished product with clients and that you're in the various industries that you want to work with. To give you a couple examples of the rollout, the idea was with all the information that you saw before, we had clearly defined what the problem was in several industries. Now, there's never any one-size-fits-all solution. So our solution isn't for everyone, but for the people that it's there for, it's very, very useful and very, very unique. To give you a couple examples, we worked with Delane, which is the Belgium Public Transport Ministry. Like yourselves, they have trams. And a tram is a perfect captive market. You have 30 people sitting on a vehicle with nothing else to do. So our equipment are all in one cloud. Because it was compact, because it was 3G ready, is able to go into trams and create its own little cloud with marketing on it, where we have all the client's information, all the heavy downloads, the value propositions, the coupons, the special offers, the competitions, anything we can use to data capture, is all actually happening on the tram. And from that is just one 3G connection that's maintaining remote access to our vehicles. An extreme example that we use our equipment for every year is for Amsterdam Pride events, where we can rent, with our small box and our battery pack, we can rent Vespa scooters and actually put our equipment in the helmet case of a Vespa scooter. We put big rainbow flags around the side, and we find big, strong guys and make them wear very tight white T-shirts that say "Wi-Fi turns me on." And they just go out into the crowds, and they have their own little mobile cloud, and people connect to the scooters, they get their information, we do our data capture, we do our promotions, and then they drive away. For music concerts, that's where we've had to scale up our technology. Remember, compromises. One of the big compromises we had to do with this little box is to basically be able to have 15 simultaneous users. Now, in a scooter, on a tram, in limited environments, in retail, you're never going to have more than 10, 20, 30 people in front of you. So 15 users isn't so bad. But one of the biggest situations that we find where we have bandwidth shortages is at concerts and festivals and venues. I was privileged enough that Tavi got me a ticket for Robbie Williams on Wednesday night when I arrived, and it was great. I was there, first time in Estonia, sitting with 60,000 of my new best friends, and I wanted to tell everyone about it. I wanted to tweet, I wanted to Facebook, couldn't do anything, could barely make phone calls. I'm happy I didn't lose Tavi. So what we do by scaling this up is exactly that. We set up the Wi-Fi, but without having to set up the big internet connection to let everyone out, because all our videos, all our content, all our information is actually on site. And the example I would have taken away with Robbie Williams is, on the one side, everyone paid for their tickets, and there was merchandise, and there was food sales, but how much would 30,000 publicly permissioned Facebook details be worth at the end of all that from everyone in the crowd, just to be able to just from having allowed them to do social media? So we do a lot of work with the music artists for concerts, for events, for festivals, in order to be able to give user experiences to the mobile devices that people are using there. We do a lot of work for liquor brands. They find, like cigarettes in America these days, it's harder and harder to advertise. So we basically embed our equipment into the machines behind a bar that have the liquor logos on them. And so when Bacardi is doing a promotion, there's a Bacardi Wi-Fi hotspot in the bar. And you can connect to the hotspot, once again, without internet, without worrying about bad 3G. And the hotspot will give you a Bacardi cocktail that it will be on your phone screen that you can then show the barman and take advantage of. The key to all this, though, is two things. It's first of all, having that unique product, and secondly, getting it out there. Now, as I said, we got it out there through relatively old school methods, but you have to make sure that people know the product's there, and that people know how to use it, and that people know what the value is. I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. Give you guys a quick demonstration. I have some toys and kits here on the side if anyone wants to have a look at anything in greater detail. But the pressure part of the speech, the live test. So what I'd like to do, though, just so you guys can actually see what the user's experience is about and relate that to the business cases, is I assume most people here have smartphones. If I could have maybe 3 people put their hands up, and 1, 2, 3, perfect. If you guys can take your smartphones out, you'll see that there's a Wi-Fi hotspot network called at CMA Fest. You do a scan for Wi-Fi. Now, I only want the 3 of you to connect because this is a demo box, and if 100 people all start doing stuff, no one's going to get anything. But after the demo's done, everyone's free to just play around and try and kill my products. Absolutely no problem. If you guys have connected to at CMA Fest, all you need to do now is open your browser. If you have a page cached, try and surf to Google or try and surf somewhere. And hopefully, you guys will tell me that we've now taken control of your browser. And we are now promoting to you the information we want to promote to you as opposed to the information that you might want to get for yourself. Is that a yes, no, maybe? Great. The demo you guys can do for people around you is the fact that there is 400 megabytes of content stored on our local cloud here. It would be impossible to run that through the internet, not just with the connections in Estonia, but with the connections in most of the world. What you guys should be seeing, though, is that if you click on the video tabs, if you click on the PDF download tabs, all the information you guys are receiving is high definition, 20 megabyte PDFs, full HD video streams. We're really trying to give people a full-on user experience. And then, as an example of how we data capture, if you guys click on the free Wi-Fi button, you're not going to get free Wi-Fi because the box isn't plugged into the internet. But you'll see that we use Facebook, Google, email, all sorts of different points of authentication so that we can grab you. We give you the value propositions. We give you a great user experience. We call this digital real estate, just in the same way that physical real estate is very valuable to sponsors and is very valuable for information. We create an unlimited amount of digital real estate, which can be used in the same way and which can be completely independent of anything of any third parties, operators, or anything else. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. The demo is officially over, so if anyone does want to connect to the at CMA Fest network or the at Keith Urban network and have a play around, please go crazy. And I suppose I open it up for any questions or
yes,
or comments.
Now you have a chance to, let's give an applause, yes. Good. Questions to Dan? Yes?
Not at all. Sorry.
Let me get to the internet guys. But the question was about what's going to be the future of bandwidth, broadband technologies. Is 4G or something going to kill your product?
Sure. I mean, there's all sorts of big names out there at the moment. WiMAX, LTE, broadband, cable. What we found in our experience is that content is like a vacuum. And in the same way that nature abhors a vacuum and will fill it up as much as possible, content sees extra bandwidth and not only fills it up, but overfills it. The example I give of that is very simple. 10 years ago, I wanted to download 700 megabyte AVI videos. I had a 5 megabit per second internet line. It took me half an hour. The internet provider said, don't worry, we're going to upgrade your 10 megabit per second line to a 50 megabit per second line. But by the time the line went to 50 megabits per second, I didn't want to download 700 megabyte AVIs anymore. I wanted to download 2.4 gigabyte Blu-ray videos. And it still took half an hour. And so now they're saying, don't worry, we're coming out with LTE and super broadband, and you're going to have 100 megabits per second. But by the time that comes out, I'm going to want to download 7 gigabyte super HD kind of videos, which are still going to take half an hour. So content will always fill up the void, and I wish I had a way to draw a graph, but if you look at power versus time, CPU power is kind of moving like this, storage power is moving like that, and bandwidth is moving like this. And as long as you've got a big gap between CPU, storage, and bandwidth, you're always going to have the case for local delivery and local clouding. Not for everything, but for the kind of business cases that we've defined and the clients that we work for. Thank you.
Question from that.
Starting your new level, did you use VC help or how did you get the initial investment?
So the question was about how did you get started? Did you use venture capital or your clients' money?
Sure. I was a financial trader for Morgan Stanley, so that's when I used the client's money. It helped me to put away a bit of my own money, but I'm a big fan of bootstrapping. I think that anyone can start a business with $100 or less. That'll buy you a website. It'll send you to the photocopy place to make your 10,000 photocopies. And it should get you off the ground. It'll allow you to register a company name and really get moving. What we found is we've done two things. I've also never developed a product which I know I didn't have a client for. So all we had to do was get ourselves to prototype level, show it to the client generally. The client would sign the order, a purchase order, and we could then take the purchase order to the bank to actually get bridging finance, to go from prototype to final version, because the bank has a document signed by a big company like Universal Music or like the Belgian Public Transport Company and knows that they can finance us that way. I'm also a big fan of trading your way out of trouble. You know, if you need money, sell stuff. Doesn't necessarily have to be core, but you know, you write an invoice, someone pays it, you're in business. You know, you have cash flow coming through. Only when we've reached a stage for phase 2 funding, which we're actually going through now, but that's the $10 million level. We're speaking to private equity companies mainly at the moment because we've signed up some big contracts that have annuity revenue. So it's not a project where you get paid a lump sum. It's a 5-year contract where we're getting money every month. And that's where it becomes interesting for private equity because they're looking for cash flow as opposed to VC, which is really looking for the seed capital. And the advantage with dealing with private equity at a later stage is that they're a lot less vicious as far as equity is concerned, and you can negotiate with them a bit better.
How does this story, what you just told, that you always start with a client in mind, how does it fit with this Bluetooth?
I have a client, Universal Music, has told me if we crack this, they'll buy it. And what we would do for them is Universal Music puts cardboard POS displays into retail stores, which they put their CDs on to get people to buy them. Now, it would be very expensive to put a digital display in those cardboard displays because they're cheap. But what we can do is put this kind of circuit board into the digital into the cardboard display with a speaker. And what we then do is we design an app for the latest Universal artist. The app then goes on the phone. When the phone comes within range of the low energy Bluetooth chip, it will trigger the app to go through the individual's music library, report the preferences back to the cardboard POS, so that the cardboard POS plays the song on the album that most closely, you know, matches the music preferences of the individual. Very simple stuff. Still got to wrap it up, but you know, once again, know where your out is with all that.
Okay, it's interesting because it sounded as you were just fooling around, playing it, trying to do something, but you actually have a vision why you are doing it.
Yeah, there's always a plan. I mean, I hope that I get to a stage where I can be like General Electric or Boeing with their skunk works and just put a huge budget into crazy developments, but we're not quite there yet, no.
Okay.
I have 3 small questions. How big is your product development team, and which are the roles, like in general, who you work with? Then how long is the development cycle for your product, for example, which you demoed? And how do you plan the whole product life cycle? If you design something, you invest some time and money in it, and how long do you plan to keep it on the market before you get a new one?
Sure. Staff-wise, we got 15 people. The lovely thing about being in digital is it's all satellite-based. I've got a studio still in South Africa from when I was there. I've got another studio in Belgium from when I was there. We have 2 programmers in Kiev because it's trendy at the moment. If you don't have programmers in Kiev, you're nowhere. Couple Israelis, and then 6 staff in New York. And I mean, the point there is to keep the New York staff as light as possible because that's where all the expense comes from. My title for a while was Chief Cost Center just by living in Manhattan. So that's what happens on that side. Regarding the actual budgets, timelines, and everything else, a mentor of mine gave me his theory around 20 years ago when I wanted to get launched in the wine business. Well, he gave me 2 points. His first point was that the easiest way to make a small fortune in the wine business is to start with a large one. And the second point he gave me was the rule of pi. He said, if you think it's going to cost $10,000, you multiply it by pi. And if you think it's going to take 6 months, you multiply it by pi. And to be honest, generally, things have actually would come in slightly faster and slightly under budget. But don't run out of cash. Don't underestimate your budgets. Don't underestimate the time that it might take. Build in safety margins, because it's a real shame when a product is 95% done and needs another 2 months, but that there is just no money around to be able to finish that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.